today's theme is legacy recipes, and those of you that are familiar know that Spencer puts these together. So those of you who are new are finding this is a great tool that he does, and he's super good at it. But he kind of, at the beginning, he talks about preserving the family recipes. And that was a common theme I had at the front desk, and when people were calling and like, what exactly does that mean, you know, if I bring something? And it's really, you know, something that people ask you to make, or that it's, well, you are known for. If you go somewhere, they always are expecting you to make that. And so that was kind of our thought here. A coworker of ours, that we came up with it because she found there was an article online, a tombstone, and it had the person's date and like their most famous recipe, you know, and something. So that's kind of where we took that from. So the front you'll see is information that Spencer put together about preserving family recipes and some resources that he uses and some other people at the library use. So that's what those first couple pages are. And then you'll see that if you go through there, there's lots of different recipes from staff that Alyssa, myself, Spencer put together. We asked our other staff members. Nobody really came up with anything at that point. And Spencer's so good. We've had this done for a couple weeks because he's always planning ahead. Also, before I continue with our official recipes, we want to thank the Friends of the Bookstore, our Friends of the Library, the bookstore people over on the side. They are very helpful. They bring, as you notice, some of you have already been over there. They have lots of different cookbooks. So please visit them today. But they are great, and you can join and become a member of Friends of the Library Bookstore. And it's $5 for the year. It's a great thing. And they have lots of good stuff here and at the bookstore itself. So I'm going to say my piece. Those of you who don't know, I am short. I'm quick and easy because I don't do hard recipes. It's just not my thing. I like cooking, but I don't want to be in there forever and ever and ever. So I picked two recipes. One that we lived in Michigan, and we had a fifth wheel up on the lake, and so every year we, had to help put the dock in. I say we. The men put the dock in, took the dock out at the end of the year, and the women put together a potluck. That's what we did. So I was always asked to make my blueberry dump cake. Okay, because it's not hard. So both of my recipes are on page 5. The other recipe that I chose was cheesy potatoes, because that's what I tend to make for pretty much every family gathering that we have. And we are fortunate enough that both of my in-laws live here, and now I have 4 of my nieces out of the 5 that are down here, plus we have a great niece and a great nephew who are joining us soon, and I have a sister-in-law and brother-in-law, so we are very fortunate. We have lots of family at the holidays. But cheesy potatoes is one. It works for just about anything. It's a great brunch. If you have a brunch and you need a brunch item, I've done that. I used to take it to work all the time. It's nice because you can cut it in half and do like an 8x8 if it's just a smaller gathering, if you need, So that's a nice piece. You can adjust it as needed. For both of these recipes, and I'll start with the cheesy potatoes because they're on the top on page 5. You can see that was the big one because that had 6 items. The blueberry dump cake only has 5. I don't do hard. So the cheesy potatoes, the biggest thing you have, the biggest thing that is time consuming is cutting up your onions. That's what it calls for. It's, again, much to Spencer's chagrin, it gives you measurements. I do not follow that to a T, which drives him crazy, but he rolls with it. So it says a cup of onions. Do whatever you like. If you really like onions, put more onions in. No big deal. For this one, I did use a can of cream of mushroom soup, but I have used cream of chicken before, so not a big deal. And if you have another cream soup that you prefer, that would be fine too. The 16 ounce of sour cream, butter, a half a stick of butter, soft and melted. Cheese, Again, it says 8 ounces. If you really like cheese, use more. It says cheddar, use whatever you like. If you don't have cheddar, pull out whatever you have. I've done that before too. But I did follow this recipe this time because it was for all of you. So, and then of course, just frozen hash browns. Everything that I got for both recipes was at Walmart, so it's nothing. A lot of these things are staples that I just have either in the pantry, in the fridge, in the freezer that are just common things because, like I said, cheesy potatoes, we make a lot. I make it a lot. So you can see it's mixing it all together. You just grease your 9x13 pan and put it all in there. I tend to do it, I mix like half of each ingredient, put it in there, and then do it like another layer and do the same thing so everything gets really mixed in well. And then that's what I did for both of these. I did a double recipe. They are cooking right now. That's what you are smelling. So they will be out for you shortly. But that was the cheesy potato. So again, nothing hard. The blueberry dump cake, also you can see is not hard. The one big thing here is that you can substitute a different pie filling. If you do not like blueberries, you want strawberry, you want cherry, go for it. Do whatever you need to do. I have only ever made it with blueberry because that was always requested. That, like I said, that was a favorite at the lake. And so I made this at the beginning of the season and at the end of the season and any other time in between that we'd have a potluck. So you just need a can of crushed pineapple and you want all the juices in the bottom. And then open up your can of blueberry filling, layer that in there nicely. Take a yellow cake mix and just sprinkle it on. Yeah, again, that's my mantra. Then I put the butter on next. I melt the stick of butter, put that on. You kind of try to spread it out, and then the pecans, and then you just cook that for 35 to 45 minutes. I did 45 minutes for both of them because I did a double batch, and so I cooked them at the same time. So my big thing was I only had 3 9x13 pans, so I had to use a disposable one because I'm like, I'm using everything. But this is not a hard one. It's, everything I do is easy and it's well loved. And people are always like, blueberry and pineapple, are you sure? But together, it really does work and it mixes in really well. So I hope you enjoy both of these.
So I put a couple of recipes in here. We'll start out with the one that I didn't make. It's on page 7. This one's called Special Burgers. This came from my father's side of the family as far as I know. We don't know really where it came from except my grandmother used to make it for their family when my father was growing up, and then we started making it for us. The reason why it's called Special Burgers is because they're special. What's really nice about this recipe is if you're trying to make a meal, maybe you're having family come over and you don't want to spend a ton of money, this stretches. So it only takes 1 pound of beef, ground beef. That's it. So then you're only going to need a package of 8 hamburger buns, so that's basically going to make 16 servings out of this. So what you do is you take your ground beef in a bowl, and you're going to put your raw, it's not cooked. You're going to do your milk, ketchup, mustard, Worcestershire sauce, sugar, salt, and vinegar. You're going to put that in a bowl and just kind of take a fork and just gently stir it. Then you're going to, what I like to do, the thing that's not on here is I like to butter. You're going to open up the hamburger buns and put them on a sheet tray and then butter them, and then take some of the raw mixture, put it on the buns and kind of spread it out, and it goes in the broiler on low for about 15 minutes. You just take I just take a couple of forks and just kind of, make sure it's cooked all the way through. That's it, done. So it's a really great recipe. Again, if you're on a budget or if you want to try something different, you don't want to spend a lot of money because, you know how the grocery situation is, it's always going up. So try that out. Okay, so for the other 2 recipes that I did make for you is on page 6. We're going to start there. Again, this is on my father's side of the family. Chex Mix. We've all probably made Chex Mix here, I'm sure. Somebody was talking to somebody before that says, this nuts and bolts? I said, I've not heard it called that, but I guess that's another version of it. So All right, so my grandmother made what's on the back of the box. I'm sure you've all seen the famous box, and then of course this time of year they put the original party mix recipe on the back of the box. So you've got your cereals and then your Worcestershire sauce again, garlic powder, onion powder, butter, and here's the thing, seasoned salt. I was on a low salt kick for a while. You saw how well that lasted. So I decided, what if I deconstruct the seasoned salt? Then you have control of how much salt you want to put in it. So a couple of things. You can use unsalted butter for this if you're trying to watch your salt. For this, I did use salted butter today. This makes a lot. When I say a lot, this is the pan we cook it in, okay? In case you're wondering, the original recipe calls for like 3 cups of rice, 3 cups of Chex and wheat and that stuff. So I'll go over the ingredients here in a minute of everything that we put in it. I better, because somebody's going to ask, how many cups does this make? So I went and I measured out everything in cups. Would anybody like to guess? So we got 3 boxes of cereal, we got a box of Cheez-Its, and we got 2 things of Goldfish, and we got these little rye chip things. So would anybody like to take a guess how many total cups went in this?
64.
I got 64, somebody said 25, 40. Let's go with 71. So there should be enough. And this is what we make at the house. I know it's kind of scary, but we try to give some away so we're not eating all of it. It's just easy to sit there on the TV and just keep on going, right? All right, so if we look at what we've got for this version of it is the Cheez-Its. And like Suzanne said, if you don't like one of these, swap it out for something that you do like. So Cheez-Its, if you like the white cheddar, the extra toasty, the original, whatever. This is a 21-ounce box. I think in here it calls for 16. Our supervisor got us the big box, so I dumped the whole thing in. So there you go. So there's that. Rye chips, those can be kind of hard to find. They're from Gardetto's Special Request Garlic Rye Chips. This is your 14-ounce bag. That whole thing went in because we kind of like those. If you don't like them or you never tried it, try it.
Where did you get them?
Everything here came from Walmart. Yep, at the Wally World. All right, here is Goldfish, but since you guys are special, we got the Orlando edition. So there you go. It's got our little mouse on there, so we got support up there at the mouse. So we put 2 of those in. The Cheerios, the thing about the Cheerios, I find that they kind of shrivel up a little bit, so they're going to absorb any extra moisture, but we're taking care of that in the sauce, which I'll get to in a minute. Your rice Chex and your corn Chex. We don't do the wheat Chex at our house. If you like that, dump it in and replace one of the other ones, so that's not a problem. All right, so going back to trying to get the salt under control, because seasoned salt, it's in the name, it's salt, a lot of salt, especially at this quantity. So this has got 4 cups of butter in it, which is 2 pounds. So again, I use salted butter. All right, now we're going to start working on what's actually in the seasoned salt, because it took me a while to figure this out. It's paprika, turmeric, celery seed, garlic powder, onion powder, and of course salt. So the salt you can have control over. For this, I did use salted butter, and I put in 2 tablespoons of salt instead of 3 because of the salted butter. You might think, holy moly, that's a lot of salt. But we're seasoning 71 cups of stuff, so it's gonna spread. And I tried a little bit last night, of course. You got to do quality control. And I thought it could actually use more salt, but that's me. So when you try some, see what you guys think. You may want to put the full 3 tablespoons in. The other thing I found out with a regular Chex Mix recipe is you go to make up what I call the sauce, and you put it on the stuff. What does it do? It goes right to the bottom. Now you're fighting to try to. So I thought, what if I put cornstarch in with it? So in this, I put 4 tablespoons of cornstarch. As you're working with it, it may need more. So I think I ended up putting 8 tablespoons of cornstarch for this, that it does thicken it a little bit, so it keeps it from hitting the bottom, and then now you're fighting it trying to get to stir it. You want it like Elmer's glue, kind of. It's still kind of flowing, but it's not just like water. And of course, your Worcestershire sauce. So you put that all in the bowl. Now, like everybody else, I used to use a whisk. And I was trying and trying and trying to get it all to come together. Couldn't make it work for me. So I borrowed my wife's boat motor. If you got one of these things, stick this in the bowl, blitz it for a couple of minutes. This will force it to come together. And to clean it, it's super easy. I just take another bowl with some warm soapy water, stick it in there, run it, and it cleans itself. Done. So it's not a big mess. So if you don't have one of these, this particular one's made by Braun, and it comes with other attachments. So if you need like a whisk or like to have it chop something, and you don't want a full food processor or any of that stuff, it's a great tool. I don't know how much we paid for that thing. We've had it forever. It just works. So basically that's what I do. The hardest part of this recipe, first of all, when you take all your dry ingredients and you stick it in your vessel, stir it first so you get all the cereal and everything mixed. Then I put half the sauce on, stir it. Put the rest on, stir it. Then I end up stirring this for like 10 minutes because it's big, right? And I'm trying to make sure it's all coated, because once it goes in there, it's going to start to set. And if you have any dry pieces, it's not going to magically coat itself. So don't be afraid to stir it. Because now the original recipe I believe calls for 250. I've got it at 275, so this isn't going to take all day. But even at 275, it takes about 2.5 hours to bake in your oven. So, and you just, every 30 minutes, you pull it out, you give it a good stir, put it back in, another 30 minutes. I think they even have an option to do it in the microwave now. I've not tried that. So if anybody's tried that and you like that, awesome. Anything is better than the stuff they sell in the bag. I've tried that, and it's like you might as well just eat the cereal out of the box with nothing in it, in my opinion. There's no seasoning for it. So that's the Chex Mix. Again, you can kind of customize it to whatever you want. Any questions on that? Yes.
Have you tried putting it in Tupperware and freezing the extra? If you make a big batch so that it would last and you pull it out when you want it?
So the question was if I ever tried freezing it. You mean when it's finished? And then I have not. It usually doesn't last that long to need to freeze it. I would say try it and give it a go. It's I don't see why it wouldn't hurt. And this is something like, for example, if you have busy holidays, this is something that we make all year long. It's not like, oh, it's November, December, we got to make the Chex Mix. It's like, oh no, it's April, it's time to take the Chex Mix. Oh, it's June, it's time to make the Chex Mix. It's July, it's time to make So yeah, as far as freezing it, that I can't tell you, but I don't see why it wouldn't hurt it. So give it a try. Oh, question, yes, back there. How long? Okay, so the question was, how long will this last? We've had it a week, no problem. So, I mean, if you're thinking about just having it sit out on the counter, but I guess what I was saying is this is a good make ahead too. So if it's busy time during the holidays, make it a few days ahead. That way it's one thing off your plate. We just put it in big Ziploc bags, and that's all you need. And then you just put it in a nice bowl and company comes over, or if they're family, you just open up the bag and go, here, help yourself. So, any other questions? Okay. Oh, okay, yep. Nope. The special burgers? Okay.
Ground beef, what's a particular fat, some is 93.
Use whatever you like. We just get the regular, like 80-20 from Sam's, whatever the regular. But yeah, if you want to do lower fat, or if you want to try it with turkey, I've not tried that. Some people want to try to lighten it up that way. That might work. So, but yeah, you just use the broiler on low because you need to try and cook it because you don't want the bread to burn before the meat's done. So that's the trick with that. Yeah, no problem. Okay, all good on those? All right, so now we're going to switch over to page 8. Now, if anybody starts running for the door, say I got to go to the bathroom, I'm on to you, okay? Chocolate mayonnaise cake. See, they're running for the door already back there. Suzanne, close the door. Okay, so my grandmother on my mother's side, this was her thing. When she went to church gatherings, family reunions, potlucks, whatever was going on, she was in charge of the coleslaw. They made, I'll never forget being a little kid, they took boxes of cabbage and was shredding it and making coleslaw. Then when we had the ice cream social, because this is dairy country, we're talking in Pennsylvania, they would make grape nut ice cream. So, okay, so some of you have heard of that. And then the other thing that she was kind of signed up for all the time to make was this chocolate mayonnaise cake. That was her 3 things. So I thought, well, a lot of people have not had mayonnaise cake. I'm going to tell you right now, everybody asks, does it taste like mayonnaise? No. If you've never had mayonnaise cake, I think you're in for a treat. So let's just look at the ingredients. This is basically a 3-bowl recipe. For the cake, you're going to have your chopped up chocolate, cocoa powder, and water. Those 3 things go into, you're going to put the chopped up chocolate and cocoa powder in a bowl. You're going to boil the water and put it into the bowl with your cocoa powder and chocolate. It's going to melt it and smooth it out. So that's bowl 1. Then in the next bowl, you're going to put your all-purpose flour, baking soda, baking powder, espresso powder, salt, sugar, and granulated sugar, and brown sugar in another bowl. And then I have a KitchenAid, so what I did is in there I put the mayonnaise, the 2 eggs, and vanilla extract. So you whirl that together so that's nice and smooth. Then you're going to take and you're going to alternate your wet and your dry. That's what's nice about if you have a KitchenAid, it almost acts as another person for you, so you can kind of work the other 2 bowls. And then it all comes together. You put it in a pan. What I've been doing is I line my pans with parchment paper, because then I can just lift the whole thing out. There's no more of this cutting into, like, especially if you want to use your special pan, how do you get the first piece out, all that business. For those of you that were here when we did I made the pie, right? The pan was lined with foil for that exact reason. This is the same thing, only for the cake. For the frosting, again, it's just bittersweet chocolate. When I say bittersweet chocolate, this is what I used. I don't know if it's official buttersweet, or bittersweet rather. Hershey's Special Dark. Nothing but the best for this place, okay? Now, as far as the cocoa powder, in case you're wondering, this is what we have in our house. It's the Ghirardelli Dutch process that's in the purple bag. Again, you get this all from Walmart. So you've got your, for the frosting, again, you've got your chocolate. You're going to put in unsalted butter, powdered sugar, and vanilla extract. I put that all in I don't like to sift a lot because, I've been going to the cooking school of Suzanne, make it easy. But in this case, because it's for the frosting, I did put the powdered sugar in a sifter and I sifted it. And there was some lumps in there and I couldn't get them out, so in the trash. It was just a small amount, so it wasn't going to affect the recipe. Just whirl that up in your KitchenAid if you've got one, or if you got a really strong arm, use a whip, whatever you got. The frosting can easily be made a day ahead. That's what I did. I actually broke everything up between Thursday and last night so I can make sure we could get everything done. So that's pretty easy. So last night we baked the cake. Now, we got, 480 people here. So I thought, how in the world are we going to be able to get enough stuff? So for those of you that have been here a while, I pulled out my Detroit pan. Some of you might remember this. If you haven't, this is another Walmart thing. So this is actually a double 9x13. So if you ever have a thing calls for 9x13 and you're going to be going to something like this, or an organization you might be going to, and you want to take something that's going to be more than 3 servings, if you go get you one of these, I forgot how much I paid for this. It's like a $5, $7 pan. This is not expensive. But I don't want to be cutting in this because I do use this for my pizzas, and I want to be able to just pull my pizzas out. So that's why I lined it with parchment foil, or parchment paper rather. And that's what we did here is it took two of us. We got it out of the pan onto the counter, we cut it, and now it's ready to go. So that's easy peasy. The thing about chocolate mayonnaise cake, I was kind of looking into why and how this became a thing. So I guess the chocolate mayonnaise cake actually made its first debut in 1927. And then what happened? The Great Depression. So now people need to figure out how to make their food dollar really stretch. So mayonnaise was a great condiment that they could use in other things, including with baking, so they didn't have to go out and buy necessarily eggs and oil. You'll notice there's no oil in this cake. Where is it coming from? From the mayonnaise. What's in mayonnaise? Oil, eggs, and vinegar. You'll notice that there's baking soda in the recipe. So the vinegar, which is an acid, is going to react with the baking soda and going to make the cake lift. So a little bit of science going on there. So then during World War II, I remember my grandmother, when I was about 6 or 7, she sat me down and she opened up this little photo album. I said, oh, good, I'm going to learn about the family. You know, you're a kid. It was kind of boring. But she had saved the ration stamps from the wars. So she said, if you didn't have this stamp, you couldn't buy sugar. If you didn't have this stamp, you couldn't buy eggs or whatever it was. So it all comes back to people had to get creative, and this is one of the ways that they were able to stretch their dollar, or maybe if they're only allowed so much mayonnaise that time, or eggs maybe, and they needed eggs for something else, they could stretch it. So that's kind of cool. So it's still a pretty popular cake today if you've not tried it. So has anybody ever had chocolate mayonnaise cake before? Oh, about a quarter of you. Okay. So the rest of you have not tried it, please try it. Again, it does not take, and trust me, there's this much cake and this much frosting. We put it on with a cookie scoop last night. If you've not tried that, last night my wife looked at me, she goes, what are you doing? Because the cake was so big and I didn't want to have to try to spread all this icing, I just took it out and went plop, 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 plop. I made these little balls of icing, and then she took a spoon, went doot, 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 and it was all even and it was done. So that was kind of a cool little trick. So yeah, so basically you bake it at 350. It took this cake, I would say, around 40 minutes. Check it early. I do use a thermometer. For those of you who've been with us a while, you know how much I like my thermometer. Not only does it check when I see if it's crumbs on the metal piece, the probe, it can also tell me the temperature of the cake. I like to shoot for at least over 190 for cake to make sure that it's set. That way there's no question of, is it done? And you know, the jiggle test and everything else you can do. But when it goes in there and says 190, because it's also going to carry over cook a little bit too, sitting on your counter. So then you know it's cooked. Plus, we're going to frost the top of it anyway. Nobody's going to know. You see the little holes I put in there. Good way to do that. I think that's about it that I've got. Anybody have any questions on that one? One question? Yeah?
Not a question, but I do use mayonnaise like when I'm making a grilled cheese.
Yes, I've heard that. So put mayonnaise on the bread, and then here's another thing. I'm come from Pennsylvania Dutch country. Has anybody tried, now don't run out on me, has anybody tried mayonnaise on French fries? There you go, there's my peoples. Yes, vinegar as well, but yeah, but if you've not tried mayonnaise, it's great. Question? Oh, so when she went to Europe, that's all they served was mayonnaise on French fries. Man, see, those people know how to do it there. That's Pennsylvania Dutch, right? So we all came over there.
I'm from Europe.
Oh, okay.
We know everything.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised.
Any other questions, comments? Oh, back there, yeah. So there you go. A dollop of mayonnaise and cornbread keeps it nice and moist, she said. So there you go. So yeah, so I think it's a great thing. Oh, the other thing I will mention, I did bring on purpose, is I've tried different Worcestershire sauces. Do not buy the store brand. It comes out like water, and there is nothing in it. So I'm all about saving your money, like buy the cheap cereal and all that, because by the time you put all the stuff with it, nobody's gonna be able to tell, was it from General Mills or Walmart? This I do buy. The Lee and Perrins, it's worth it. It's thicker. It's got all the stuff in it. So it's probably a couple dollars more in the store, but it's worth it. It really has all the flavor in it. So again,
What kind of mayonnaise?
any mayonnaise you like, just so it's not fat-free or reduced fat, because you need the oil in it for the cake. You could use the Walmart mayonnaise. You could use, this was made with Hellmann's. That's what we had, so.
My maiden name was Slavy. My mom's name was Jane Slavy, and she was a Polish cook. She learned everything from her mother, who came to, that would be my Busha, came to America in 1908 as a teenager, and then she met and married my grandpa. He came to the United States as a teenager also. And they lived in South Bend, Indiana, and he worked for Studebakers. And my mom, she, like I said, learned everything from her mother, and she would cook at weddings, funeral breakfasts, fundraiser chicken dinners at the PNA, if anybody knows what that is. That's the Polish National Alliance Community Club, just like Sons of Italy or any other ethnic group. Today I made cucumbers and sour cream. This was a summer salad. I can't remember having salads in wintertime because it just wasn't available then. But when my mom wasn't brining cucumbers to make pickles, there was always extra cucumbers. So she would make this salad with sour cream, dill, vinegar, and sugar, and I put this simple recipe. These are her ingredients because I did do a legacy on her. I did an oral history when I went to college. I took a class, I minored in history, and there was a class that was food history. So I took that, and as a final project, I could work on writing about a company, a food product, or do an oral history. So I interviewed my brothers and sisters, and of course my mother. I'm one of 9. I had 5 sisters and 3 brothers. So I hope you enjoy this salad today.
You know, they were talking about legacy cookbooks. I guess about 10 years ago, my daughter wanted all kinds of recipes from myself and from her dad that, she wanted to learn that she wanted to have to make. And so when we moved down here, she needed to make a cookbook. So she went through and she wrote down all of the recipes as we were making them. And this was one that, she had a hard time because I couldn't tell her how much to use. So, but she put everything in we have 2 binders that are like this thick. And, she went in, she printed everything, and then she put them in plastic, in a plastic insert so that, it doesn't get dirty when you take it out to make it. So, but I'm really grateful for that because there's a lot of recipes in there that are from my family and from my husband's family, and that things that we've made over the years and just really enjoyed. So that was a good way for her to put it all together. But it was hard for me to make this because I have no idea quantities. I usually make it when people ask me to make it. I make 10 pounds of potatoes, okay? Because my husband's theory is you can never make enough, for him at least, and I always had to save some for him. And so, but I did make, this is 5 pounds of potatoes is what I use, and I usually cook them, I just put them in water, submerge them, put water, cover them in water and boil them with the skins on. And then what I do is when it's all done, I take it out, drain the water, and let it kind of the skin gets easier to skim off, and that's the way I do it, But, if you'd rather rather peeled potatoes first. And I try and do it when it's warm, the potatoes are warm, because it absorbs more of the flavor. I used a 1/4 cup of onion, and I usually use a white or a yellow sweet onion. I've never made it with red onion. I guess you could, but that's, this is just how we've always made it. I use a 1/4 cup of pimento. You can get the little jars at Walmart. I've also used roasted red peppers when I didn't have a jar of pimentos. I use a 1/4 cup of black olives. I just chop those up. I use a teaspoon of celery seed because I'm not one for celery, but I don't mind celery seed for some reason. Hard-boiled eggs. I used 4 with 5 pounds of potatoes, and a teaspoon of kosher salt and a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And so I chop everything up, put it in a bowl, and then I make what we call my mom's secret sauce. And that was the hardest part to try and figure out. So I just started putting things together and tried to get as close as I could. But I took 2 cups of mayonnaise, and then I added a tablespoon of yellow mustard, just regular yellow mustard, and I used a 1/4 cup of sugar. Okay, and I mixed it all up, and then I started to pour it onto the potato mixture. And it was one of those things where I put like a cup of it, mixed it up, and saw if I liked the consistency or not. And if I didn't like the texture or consistency, then I'd add some more sauce. So, I mean, it's up to you, I guess. But this is what it looks like when it's done. And so, but I kind of am glad that they had this so that I could actually try and figure out what this recipe was. So now I can give it to my daughter because she's the one who always asks me, how do you make that potato salad? Can you make it, And she only gets it now when we go up to Maryland so that I make it. So now I can give her the recipe. So that's it. Thank you.
I had the same problem with my husband's grandmother. All of our ancestors, our grandparents, were immigrants, probably as everybody in this room, except if you're Native American. But anyway, and as Grandma Sarah got old, she made this wonderful bread. She made the bread all the time. And so I saw the handwriting on the wall, and I said, Grandma, would you show me how you make your bread? And she says, oh, yeah. So we got together for the bread making, and she says, first you take a couple handfuls of the flour. I said, I knew it wasn't going to work. I said, thank you, Grandma. Just, I never could learn to make her bread, but it was a good thing that you could figure that out. And I'm the kind that I follow the recipe like to the T, and my daughter kind of takes after her great grandma, because she'll take a recipe and she'll tweak it and add stuff, and I'm not like that. But anyway, I got this recipe out of Buttercup Bake. It's a bakery in New York City, and my grandparents came in through Ellis Island, so there's a legacy. And it's called Black and White Cupcakes. And I made it because I thought about the black and white cookies that you get in New York, and I remember having those as kids. Anyway, it's a 2-bowl recipe. The black is like a brownie. So it's got the brownie powder and the chocolate, and the recipe, it's printed up over there, so I won't go into the details because I know we're all getting hungry. The white part is cream cheese, egg, and chocolate chips. So I figure, how can you go wrong? So they're cupcakes, and so I just cut them in half, so enjoy, I hope.
Good afternoon. My name is Lynn. For those of you who know me, I follow the Suzanne camp as well. It's got to be easy, quick, very simple. And one of my favorite things is lemon chicken. Usually you get it like in a Chinese restaurant or something. So I actually found this recipe for lemonade chicken, and it's up on the counter here. It's very simple. You just throw the chicken breast in the slow cooker, get yourself a can of frozen lemonade, and you mix this with ketchup, brown sugar, and vinegar. Sounds terrible, but it's really good. You just pour it over the chicken, let it bake. Then you remove the chicken, but leave the juices down in the pot, and then mix up some cornstarch and water so it makes kind of a glaze for your chicken, and throw the chicken back in there. It's very simple. For the purposes of this class, when I took the chicken out, I chopped it up into little chunks so that everybody could have a taste. But you can leave it as, a full breast or chicken strips, or, however you like your chicken. And I think it's really good over rice or even pasta you could put it on. Or anyway, I hope you enjoy, and the recipe is up here.
My grandparents on my mother's side came from West Virginia, German, and they were German and Dutch. And they moved to Sharpsville, Pennsylvania, among the Italian people in the area. And the Italian people taught my grandmother how to make spaghetti sauce. So she passed it to my mother, and my mother passed it to me. They did not go to the store and buy the jar. They planted their own tomatoes, and they canned them. And that was how my mother did. My mother she planted her own tomatoes, she canned them, and then we ate them during the winter. Now, nothing was store-bought. They could not afford wine to put into it, nor could they afford anything fancy. So it was just plain. So I'll tell you, most of the time I just buy mine in the store. But this particular one, I did make as much close to my grandmother's as I could, because I had some tomatoes which I bought from the Little Yellow House. They're grown here in Florida. And I froze them. So I used what I had of those, and I used a fresh tomato, but I also used a can of crushed tomatoes because I was making more. So and by the way, they put meat into it, and back in those days, it was whatever you got. But I always buy meat that has the least fat. So I had to put olive oil into it, which my mother couldn't have afforded. I was going to poor. So, but anyway, so it's not fancy, it's not salty, because remember, last time we were here, Advent said, cool it on the salt bit, kiddos. So anyway, it's not salty. Oh, and my mother made it with rigatonis, which I still love, but I made it with tiny shells because I know, rigatonis would have been all over the place, whereas here it's just little shells. So I hope you enjoy it, but remember, keep in mind, I don't use a lot of salt because personally, I can't take a lot of salt. It acts like liquor, and then I have to sleep it off. So I mean it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it anyway, but keep in mind, it's not store-bought.